Happy 4th of July. I'm glad we have everything soggy, so if people shoot fireworks off, it won't start fires. That's always good. Okay, we're going to do the latter part of Zechariah. I think Doug got all the way almost to the end of chapter 6 and said he didn't get that last section, so I'm going to touch that. And that's probably the section that I'm going to talk about the most. So let's get started. Zechariah 6, and this is towards the end. Also take silver and gold, make an ornate crown, and set it on the head of Joshua, the son of Jehozadak, the high priest. Then say to him, the Lord of armies says this, behold, there is a man whose name is Branch, for he will branch out from where he is, and he will build the temple of the Lord. So, why do you think he gives such ornate instructions about the crown that's going to go on to Joshua? It is. I agree. You're a little ahead of me. But why the ornate crown? Excuse me?
Is it a custom?
No. Matter of fact, they kind of don't have a lot of customs right now because they're just coming out. They've been out of the captivity, and I don't think they've really adopted too many new things. To me, when I looked at it, it was establishing this is how the Father is looking at the Son. It is a precursor to what he's going to talk about later on in this same paragraph. He says, that man's son who's going to be the priest, he should have an ornate crown. Why is the man called Branch?
Because not all the trees bear fruit.
That's what you would think. Behold, there is a man whose name is Branch, for he will branch out from where he is. What form is branch? What form of English in that sentence is branch? There's adjectives, there's nouns, there's adverbs, there's verbs. What is it? Huh? It's an action. It's a verb.
It's a fork in the road.
It's a verb, okay? He will branch out from where he is. Branching out is doing something. It's an action. It's a verb, okay? It's not a noun. It's a verb. So hold on to that. Yeah, when you were talking about branches on trees, what is a branch on a tree? It's a noun, isn't it? This is a verb. So who's this man Branch? Easy.
Messiah.
No, this is Christ.
Yeah. Messiah. Christ and Messiah, either way. Well, that's what
The Messiah, I thought you said Josiah. Messiah, okay. Messiah, it's Christ, okay. He's branching out.
God's plan being.
He's telling him what's going to happen in the future. Remember, this is a prophet, so he's prophesizing about things that are going to happen in the near future and in the far future.
When his wife gave him the handmaiden, but it wasn't the proper branch. You see it all through the Bible where man tries to intervene, but God's got another direction.
God has a path. Sometimes we try to change things, but he keeps everything on that path. Works out for the best. So how's he going to build the temple of the Lord? Remember, they're thinking, when Zechariah is talking to them, the only thing that's laid on the foundation of the temple is the footer. It's the foundation. So when he say that, so he's going to build the temple of the Lord. What do you think they're thinking?
They're thinking of physical temple.
Yeah, they're thinking the physical temple when he's talking about this. But this isn't talking about the physical temple. How is Christ going to build the temple? Yep, the gospel, the death, the burial, and the resurrection. Because of that, because of what he did, he'll build his temple.
Like you said, in 3 days.
Yeah. And they said, oh, you can't do that. So is there scriptures that confuses us as to what the branch is? Because when I read that verse in Zechariah, immediately I thought of Christ. And I said, let me go look in the New Testament where it talks about it. And I said, that's not what I thought. This verse here. John 15. I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser. Every branch is in me. Branch is a noun. That does not bear fruit, so that it may, he prunes it so that it may bear fruit. You are already clean because of the word which I have spoken to you. Remain in me, and I in you. Just as the branch cannot bear fruit of itself, but must remain in the vine, so neither of you, unless you remain in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. The one who remains in me, and I in him, bears much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. If anyone does not remain in me, he is like a branch that dries up, and they gather them and throw them into the fire, and they are burned. So, who's the branch there? But who's the branches?
It's us.
It's us, okay? That's the confusion factor. At least to me. Maybe not to you, but it's immediately when I saw a branch, I thought of this. And it's not talking about the same thing. The other one is the man is branching out. And that's why he called his name Branch. Here, he's talking about us. And he is the vine. He's the main part about it, and we're the branches. But we draw life from him. They're both metaphors, but they're different. And you got to keep them straight when you look at it. Otherwise, you get kind of confused. Because we didn't build the temple, did we? Is there anything we did that justified the temple? No. Doesn't fit. So it has to fit in the context that it is. Back to Zechariah. Yes, it is he who will build the temple of the Lord, and he who will bear majesty and sit and rule on his throne. So he will be a priest on his throne, and the council of peace will be between the two offices. Now the crown will become a reminder in the temple of the Lord to Helem, Tobiah, Jedaiah, and Hen, the son of Zephaniah. So, who will he bear majesty and why? Who is he that will bear majesty? It's Christ, okay? He's the branch. He's the one who bears majesty. If you have majesty, you have to have a kingdom. What's the kingdom? The kingdom he established when he arose. Where is he right now? But he's on his throne. What comes at the end of time?
He comes back and gathers his own.
He gathers us up. Everything gets destroyed. And what is the last thing he does with the kingdom?
He'll melt the elements, like Peter says.
Well, he melt the elements. He's going to melt everything. But what does he do with the kingdom as his last thing? He gives it back to the Father. It's his kingdom right now. But at the end of everything, he gives it back to the Father. What's another title for the Council of Peace? You got it. Prince of Peace. Prince of Peace. What's the peace that he brings between the two offices? And who are these two offices?
Not only the Jews, but the Gentiles would come too.
Well, that's one way to look at it. What's another way to look at it? What war is going on between the two offices? What peace is, you got to bring peace, you got to have a war, right?
I look at it as, I refer to it as children of wrath, even though they're spiritually blind, they're reserved for a day of judgment.
Okay.
He's talking about peace between man and God.
Yes, he's talking about peace between man and God. he brings that peace because of what he did. When he built his temple with us, he brought peace between us and God. Because we didn't have peace between them. We had enmity, right? We had war. What are the sons being reminded of? This kind of bounces around a little bit to the temple, be a reminder to the sons of what's coming.
What the temple represents.
Yeah, the temple is a poor representation of what's in heaven, right? Yeah. This has all been spiritual, but then he says the sons of Zephaniah are going to remember this. And we're going to get back into what was promised here in a few verses. But it's really talking about you need to be reminded of God. Okay? You need to be reminded of a promise. And he just talked about that promise. He says, it's going to happen. I'm going to deliver it. He didn't do it as plainly as he'd done it sometimes, but he just talked about that promise. Those who are far away will come and build the temple of the Lord. Then you know that the Lord of armies has sent me to you, and it will take place if you completely obey the Lord your God. This is getting towards the end of 6. Who are those that are far away? I think you mentioned it earlier. The Gentiles. In the 4th year of King Darius, we're in the next chapter, the word of the Lord came to Zechariah on the 4th day of the 9th month, which is Chislev. Now the town of Bethel has said Sharzir and Regalamelech and their men to seek the favor of the Lord, speaking to the priests who belonged to the house of the Lord, the armies, and the prophets, saying, shall I weep in the 5th month and fast as I have done these many years? So, where's the town of Bethel, and what was it known of as in the time of Jeroboam and Rehoboam? Remember that? This is right after Solomon died. What happened? What happened to the kingdom? What happened to Israel? It split, right? You had Benjamin and Judah in the south, and then you had the northern kingdom, which was the other 10. So it split after Solomon because of a bonehead move that I think Rehoboam did. Rehoboam was in the south, wasn't he? Doug? Wasn't Rehoboam in the south and Jeroboam in the north?
I think so.
Yeah. So it was kind of a bonehead move he had. He says, hey, my dad was tough on you. I'm going to be like scorpions on you. But what was Bethel known for? If it split, remember they said Jeroboam was in the north. And he said, I can't have him going down to Jerusalem and Judah. I'll lose my kingdom. So I'm going to fix it. Dan and Bethel. He said, that's where we're going to worship God. Bethel was one of the areas of worship. What did he put in there to help them worship in Dan and Bethel? Anybody remember? A cow. He said, that's how we're going to worship God. We're going to have a cow. So that's what this area is, where these people are coming from. That's their heritage as far as Judaism. Now, Israel got taken back into captivity. Judah lasted a lot longer than Israel did, right? The Syrians and the Assyrians took them into captivity, and they settled that area. Bethel is in an area that they came to loathe, right? Samaria. What was to become Samaria is where Bethel is at this particular time. So what do these men claim to be? I think they claim to be Jews. They came down to Jerusalem to inquire of the Lord. These weren't necessarily people who considered themselves to be pagans. What are they weeping for in the 5th month? This one I had to look up. Judgment? Okay. It wasn't judgment from what I found, but it might have been. Evidently, it was the 5th month in the Jewish calendar when the Babylonians razed Jerusalem to the ground. I mean, there wasn't stone on top of another stone. They just tore it up. So they've been wailing and fasting every year, remembering when the temple was destroyed completely. Does that weeping seem hollow?
Only temporarily, because we see that as human nature. When things are bad, you repent, but when they're good, you forget.
Okay.
Time to worship God, they're taking that time to remember something that happened.
Yeah, they're stuck saying, oh, we're so sorry and it's so bad and we're going to fast about. What did they do to rebuild the temple? Nothing. Nothing. They didn't do anything. There's no service there at all. They're just saying, well, I just feel really bad about it. I'm going to weep about it every year and fast. They didn't do anything.
I read said that they still do that today, and basically it's the destruction of the first temple, it's the destruction of the second temple, it's the destruction of Jerusalem in AD 70. It's got all that stuff combined, and it's still a time that they do that.
Yeah, it's counterproductive. God has ordained certain things for people to do. Okay, in the Old Testament, right?
Told them to do, or they do it on their own.
Yeah. Well, this one they made up on their own. Hanukkah is made up on their own, right? What's Hanukkah? This one that's appropriate to talk about today. What's Hanukkah a celebration of? My wife said something. I saw her mouth move, but I can't hear.
It's their 4th of July.
It's their 4th of July. Okay, it's when they threw off the control of the Seleucid Empire and reestablished Israel by itself again. That's what Hanukkah represents. Probably, I grew up in a Jewish community. That was probably the highest holiday you heard about. Passover was a little bit less. That is a God-ordained holiday. Hanukkah is not. This holiday they have here that they celebrate every year is not God-ordained. And we're going to get into what God thinks of it here in a second. Then the word of the Lord armies came to saying, say to the people of the land and to the priest, when you fasted and mourned in the 5th and the 7th months, these 70 years, was it actually for me you fasted? And when you eat and drink, do you not eat for yourselves and drink for yourselves? Are these not the words which the Lord proclaimed by the former prophets when Jerusalem was inhabited by and carefree along with its cities around it, and Negev and the foothills were inhabited? So this is God's response to them saying, oh, didn't we weep and we kept it every year? How does he react?
Self-explanatory. It speaks for itself.
He says, you didn't do anything. You're doing it for yourself. You're not doing it for me. You're doing it for you. They're weeping for themselves. Okay? We lost something. God's still there. It was just a building. Like this. This is just a structure. Then the word of the Lord came to Zechariah, saying, this is what the Lord of armies has said. Dispense true justice and practice kindness and compassion, each to his brother. And do not oppress the widow or the orphan, the stranger or the poor, and do not devise evil in your hearts against one another. Does this sound familiar?
The Christians, and it applies to this nation at the same time.
Who got this message before?
It's the same thing as to treat your neighbor as yourself.
Yeah, but who got this message before? God sent a prophet. David didn't have this problem. But what was going on before Jerusalem was taken by the Babylonians? No justice, no compassion. They oppressed the widows, they oppressed the orphans, they oppressed the strangers, They oppressed the poor. They devised evil in order to take things. Their hearts were against each other. This is the message the prophets delivered to the people in Jerusalem before they were taken into captivity.
God's way of warning you. Actually, that's the justice of it.
Well, he keeps saying, this is what you need to do in order to live together. This is how I want you to treat each other. And I treat you lovingly. You need to treat each other lovingly. That's what really is talking about here. Christ, when he was told, well, what's the greatest of the commandments? He says, love God, all your heart, soul, your mind. The second is like it. Love each other as you love yourself. They didn't love each other. They didn't love God. He's saying, this is what you need to do. Why did they need this message? They had the appearance of being godly. They said, I'm godly, when God, I'm weeping. But when they got through the weeping on those holidays, what did they go back and do? Lie, cheat, steal, abuse, oppress. They went right back to it. But they refused to pay attention and turned a stubborn shoulder and plugged their ears from hearing. They also made their hearts as hard as a diamond, so they could not hear the law and the words which the Lord of armies has sent by his Spirit through the former prophets. Therefore great wrath came from the Lord of armies. So he's got a warning. Who's God speaking to? He's speaking to everybody that's there. And he's also speaking to us. The situation they have right now, they need to change. They're living like the pagans. They're not living like God's people. Who does he intend this message to apply to? Anybody who calls themselves God's people. And just as he called, and they would not listen, so they called, and I would not listen, said the Lord of armies. But I scattered them with a storm wind among all the nations whom they did not know. So the land was desolated behind them, so that no one went back and forth, since they made the pleasant land desolate. So what's he telling the men that traveled from Bethel?
They weren't going to listen before you said them.
Yeah, he says, I am not listening to you because you haven't been listening to me. All these things that have gone wrong, it's because you're not following me. And you're doing all the things that offend me. You're not my people. You don't act like it. Your hearts are certainly not where it needs to be. And that's why I'm not listening. Next chapter. Then the word of the Lord of the armies came, saying, the Lord of armies says this, I am exceedingly jealous for Zion. Yes, with great wrath I am jealous for her. The Lord says this, I will return to Zion and dwell in the midst of Jerusalem. Then Jerusalem will be called the city of truth, and the mountain of the Lord of armies will be called the holy mountain. So what was it the people did that made God jealous for Zion?
Worship him. They worship false gods.
They worship false gods. So why did he change his mind? What did they do?
God is merciful. His plan anyway.
What do you think, John?
Why did he exactly change his mind?
He did nothing. Absolutely nothing.
God is merciful.
Yep.
Even though he gets mad at you, he's still grateful.
Yep.
But that doesn't mean he's not
It shows the nature of God, doesn't it? Even when we're not repentant, he says, I'm going to forgive you.
But he still gets mad.
He does get mad. And it's never a good day when he gets mad. So, how is it God returned? What's missing in the temple?
I would say his presence.
His presence? Somebody else said something.
I said the same thing. I said God himself is what's missing. It's crazy that God's missing in the temple for God.
What did they bring back from Babylon? All the gold, knives and forks and plates and everything else, right? What didn't come back? The Ark of the Covenant did not come back. The mercy seat did not come back. Where does God sit in the temple when he comes to the temple? On the mercy seat. It's not there. It's gone. Kind of wonder, how can God return?
He can sit wherever he wants.
I don't know what they did. When they rebuilt the temple at the time of Herod, it was a big, massive temple and like that. I don't know what was in the Holy of Holies. I don't know whether they constructed a new mercy seat, but it wasn't the Ark of the Covenant. It wasn't the original Ark because it's gone. What was in the Ark of the Covenant? Two things. What? Aaron's rod. Manna. That's gone. Where have we seen truth described? Then Jerusalem shall be called the city of truth.
It was on the cross.
That second question, that's not talking about Jesus coming back?
Yeah, I think it is. John 1:14. And the Word became flesh, and flesh dwelt among us, and he saw his glory, and glory only of the Son of the Father, full of grace and truth. John testified about him and called out, saying, "This is he of whom I said, he is coming after me, has proved to be my superior because he existed before me." What was one of the main things Christ did besides dying on the cross? What did he spend 3 years doing? Teaching. Teaching the truth. Remember when he was in the temple when he was 12? And they were discussing the scriptures, and they were amazed at how much he knew about God. And he just didn't read something. He read it and explained it, what it meant. And they went, wow. Because he knew the truth. And he was speaking the truth. Has a holy mountain been described? Where was that? Oh, Doug, we failed. The book of Daniel. The stone that struck the statue became a great mountain. Who was the stone? What's the mountain? Kingdom. Great mountain is the kingdom. And it grew because of him. The Lord of armies says this: old men and old women will sit again in the public squares of Jerusalem, each person with a staff in his hand because of age. And the public squares of the city will be filled with boys and girls playing in the squares. They didn't have video games. The Lord of armies says this: if it is too difficult in the sight of the remnant of the people in those days, will it also be too difficult in my sight, declares the Lord of armies? So, why is God describing this really tranquil, peaceful, safe scene to those in Jerusalem?
That's the purpose of the whole situation. That's what's to come. This is a glimpse of heaven.
No, I don't think this is a glimpse of heaven. I think this is encouragement to say, you're looking around you right now, and everything is destroyed. Everything's a mess. Jerusalem, you can't picture in your mind what it's going to be like in Jerusalem. Because is it going to be like this in Jerusalem in the future? Huh? Is it going to be in the future to them? It was like that, peaceful, after they threw off the Seleucid Empire, wasn't it? It was peaceful in Jerusalem. People grew old there. It was a while before the Romans marched in and took things over. But they were peaceful. And under Roman rule, they were mostly peaceful. Who was causing most of the problems under the Roman rule? The Zealots, wasn't it? They have to have some vision in their mind to say, it can get back to where it was. We can have that peace. Like I said, there's transitioning back and forth between the prophetic in the future, which Doug's talked about, and in the near future. I want to call it the near future. This is probably 100 years away. Christ is much farther away. He's several hundred years away. So what's God asking them to do in verse 6?
And he said, if it's too difficult for you, I'll do it. And basically it's building the temple again. And he's going to build it himself by sending his son.
He could if he wanted to, but he does things through us, right? But to me, I kind of interpret it to say, have faith in me. It'll happen. It will happen. All these people who've been threatening you, been giving you trouble and everything else, it's going to happen. It's not too difficult. I can make it happen. If you'll work with me, I can make it happen. But if you won't work with me, it's not going to happen.
Operate, he can make it happen.
Yeah, he can make it happen in a roundabout way. The Lord of armies says this, behold, I am going to save my people from the land of the east and the land of the west. And I will bring them back, and they will live in the midst of Jerusalem, and they shall be my people, and I will be their God in truth and righteousness. Is this spiritual or physical? Yep. Because they have somewhere to go back to now, don't they? Yeah, they have somewhere to, well, not after World War II. No, this is going back to God. This is going back to Jerusalem. This is going back to Israel, to Judah, not Israel, to Judah. But it's also spiritually. He's going to bring his people back. Not just the Jews, but the people who are his people, right? The Lord of armies says, let your hands be strong, you who are listening these days to these words from the mouth of the prophets. Those who spoke in the day that the foundation of the house of the Lord of armies was laid, so that the temple might be built. For before these days there was no wage for a man, nor wage for an animal. And for him who went out or came in, there was no peace because of his enemies. And I sent all the people against one another. But now I will not treat the remnant of these people as in the former days, declares the Lord of armies. So what's the situation? What's he encouraging them to have strong hands to do? Remember when we left off from the book of Ezra? We had just gone through and they had just been stopped because Artaxerxes had issued a letter and said, have him stop, okay? And the people around there took their army and came into Jerusalem and said, you're going to stop now or we'll kill you. So what's he encouraging them to do with their strong hands? Start building again. Start building the temple. What period of time is this that he's talking about? What are the former days? They were in slavery. Which slavery was it? There was two. Egypt and Babylon. This is in Babylonian captivity. What was Jerusalem like? Was there a remnant of people left there after the Babylonians got through? Brent's shaking his head yes. Yeah, there were. The people that were useless from Babylonians' perspective. They were left there. But there was no money for them to be paid. God didn't bless them. Those people that were left there, they were just left. If people wanted to take advantage of them or like that, they took advantage of them. And he says, I'm not going to do that again. I'm not going to leave you alone like I did during those 70 years. The city is not going to be the same as the way I left it for 70 years. So did anybody try and improve the situation during that time, the 70 years that were there? No, they didn't do a thing. Not a thing. For there will be the seed of peace. The vine will yield its fruit. The land will yield its produce. And the heavens will provide their dew. And I will give to the remnant of this people all things in an inheritance. And it will come about just as you were a curse among the nations, house of Judah and the house of Israel. So I will save you that you may become a blessing. Do not fear, let your hands be strong. Is the seed of peace spiritual or physical? It's a physical rebuilding to get to the spiritual seed of peace. They've got to have Jerusalem reestablished to get to the seed of peace. Don't they? They have to have the region established. Christ was born where? Bethlehem, right? And then they took him to Jerusalem to what? The law had to be there. Everything had to be fulfilled, didn't it? So you had to have the temple rebuilt to get to the seed of peace. How were the people a curse? I think I'll get through it this morning. What does the law do? What did Paul say the law does? Does the law? Huh? Yeah, condemns you. It's a curse. Nobody can keep it. How will it become a blessing? Christ will fulfill it. When he comes, that will be the blessing. What promises were made to Abraham? I hear some mumbling, but I can't understand it. What'd you say, Clayton?
Be blessed.
The world will be blessed. That's the big one. Through your seed, all mankind will be blessed. Seed is used here. There were three of them, right? You'll inherit the land of Canaan. You'll have sons and daughters, as many as there are sand by the sea, as there are stars in heaven. Those two, they're done, aren't they? But the big one is coming. For this is what the Lord of armies says. Just as I determined to do harm to you when your fathers provoked me to anger, says the Lord of armies, I have not relented. So I have again determined in these days to do good to Jerusalem and to the house of Judah. Do not fear. These are the things which you shall do. Speak the truth to one another. Judge with truth and judgment for peace at your gates. Also, let none of you devise evil in your heart against another, and do not love perjury. For all these things are what I hate, declares the Lord. So what's changed with the people? Nothing. God said, I'm still not real happy with it, but I'm going to change. I'm going to change what I'm doing. I'm going to start blessing you. Oops. How would you sum up in one word what the people should do? Huh?
Obey.
I got repent, obey, action,
We're all saying the same thing in our own way.
love. That's what he's saying. Love. Because right now, they're the people of hate. Love. If that's your basis, that other stuff's going to come. If you love God, are you going to obey him? Sure. If you love each other, are you going to treat each other nice? Yes. But if you don't have that, you can obey all the rules you want to, and it won't do you a bit of good. Then the word of our Lord of armies came to me, saying, the Lord of armies says this, the fast of the 4th, the fast of the 5th, the fast of the 7th, and the fast of the 10 months will become a joy, jubilation, cheerful festivals of the house of Judah. So love, truth, and peace. What do you normally associate a fast with? When David's son was born from Bathsheba, what did he do for the 7 days? He fasted and prayed. Why? Because of a bad situation. That's the second bell. Normally, it's a time of grief, of sorrow. And he said that's going to be changed. On cheerful festivals for the house of Judah. And then, let's see, 18. The Lord of armies says this, it will yet turn out that the peoples will come, that is, the inhabitants of many cities. The inhabitants of one city will go to another, saying, let us go at once to plead for the favor of the Lord and seek the Lord of armies. I will also go. So many peoples and many nations will come to seek the Lord of armies in Jerusalem and plead for the favor of the Lord. The Lord of armies says this, in those days 10 people from all nations will grasp the garment of a Jew, saying, let us go with you, for we have heard that God is with you. What is this going to be? This is going to be the good news. Who brought the good news to the world and spread it? The Jews out of Jerusalem. People are coming in. Thank you for your attention.